volunteers running this initiative. This initiative is not funded by anyone, it's voluntary. So we're all doing this out of our passion to support and grow the ecosystem. And my colleague Ken, who is here, you see him, is also supporting on this. Somewhere in this event, we will encourage you to contribute towards putting this on further events, and we hope that you can contribute to the generosity. We have a cocktail table at the back. Mixologist UG. We have some really fantastic cocktails and mocktails. There's one called Hard Guy, and there's one called Coffee Mad, Punch Me, and then Chocolate Shake, so you can go and buy them very cheap. I think each is like 10,000. Please support him. And then we also have coffee on the house, you don't have to pay for that. And we have some water. Enjoy, have fun, and right now, been listening from music from Rhythm a cappella, which is a band. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be coming back, and next we're going to do play some conversational games to get to know each other better and sort of break the ice for a couple of minutes before our speakers come and speak to us. So I'm going to introduce Micah, who is the team lead at Conversational Games. He's going to introduce himself and what his games look like, and then we'll go ahead and get to know each other, break out of our silos, and when that's done, we will launch into the speeches. Thank you all very much for coming, to be supported. If this is the first
For example, if it's responsibility, I could ask, this is a business meeting, so I'll context the conversation to focus on business. So then I may be like, what are your biggest responsibilities right now as a startup? You get. If it's maybe values, I could ask something about values. If it's routines, I can ask like, what are your daily routines as a startup that are supporting you to make sure you grow? You understand? If it's accountability, who are you accountable to and how is it helping you? If it's mentorship, it can be any question. Are we together? So because we have very few minutes, you'll ask each other the questions. Are we together? When you choose a card with a word, it's a lot easier. I mean with a question, because the questions are a bit more direct. There are questions on your priorities as a business and how you balance them. There are questions on the hardest challenge you're facing right now. So the questions are open-ended, but you need to focus them on business for today. We can do. So, the good news, we've been given more time. We have only 5 minutes. So you're going to do one person, okay? So at the count of 3, you just pick someone and then choose a question or a word and discuss it for 5 minutes, okay?
5 minutes was that?
Yeah. 1 or 2. Okay, let's do 1 because it's good to maximize. 1, 2, 3, let's go. Make sure you have someone. I see some people standing still. If you fail to get a person, I don't know how you can get a client. How do you get clients? Make sure you find someone. Or join a group. I see some people standing. You can't afford to be standing right now. You need to be with someone.
First of all, I'm not proud to goals that you set in line with KPIs.
Ranges, find someone, find 2 people, join them or something. You need to grab at least 1 person and discuss a card.
And also the team member. I love much about the team lead. I love living more life with them. They should also ask the question as the team members ask them why this is not done and why this is done.
We have 2 minutes to go. I hope you can drive something home that can support you to relate with that person even after here. Two minutes to go. I hope everyone has found someone to talk to.
The other first point I said about setting goals. You know, setting goals and keep a communicator saves a lot of like that quagmire which will result. I'm saying I didn't do it. If we sit together and we say this week you are producing 200 grams packs of ginger and this one is producing this and this maybe this one 100 packets this one. At the end of the week, so you can just make yourself accountable. So if you're like, why are you not produce 100 and you produce 50? So it's like not pinpointing. It's talking about the set goals. But if we don't set the goals to achieve together, then sometimes they're like this silly.
Hi guys out there. 1 minute to go.
You want to be there, tell them I want to come at 9 today because I'm meeting. I have meetings and I'll be.
1 minute to go.
Your report time is 9.
There is no way. You get the point.
Your report time is 9.
Yeah. It's not mob reporting. That is one. Meaning my name is you come by 59, no problem. You come by 7.
1 minute to go.
Very good reports. But in order for us to show accountability in our meeting, we use like project management softwares. So there is ClickUp, there is Bukoto, there is Infinity. Currently, there's a system called Infinity. So Infinity tracks
30 seconds to go.
when you're supposed to do them, and then just keep updating it. Either started, either in progress, finished, stuff like that. Because we're in different countries, but to keep each other accountable in that regard. So,
And now it's time out. Okay. I hope you enjoyed the session. Just in case we find more time, we'll do another round, another person, another card. I encourage you to make sure you keep in touch with that person you've interacted with, so the conversation is not just wasted like that. Okay, enjoy the rest of the session. The packs of cards are out at 20,000 if you'd like to get yourself a pack. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, C. You can call me 2C. Thank you so much and welcome from that session. We're going to be having the panel right now, and because it doesn't matter what the problem is happening very soon after as early as possible. So what we're going to do right now is I will ask everyone maybe who's outside to just make yourself pick up with the inside, and then we'll have the panel started, the fireside chats. Enjoy yourself, founders.
Let's go. Guys, where's the round of applause for the game? Did you enjoy the game? Did you learn anything? Awesome. So, if we can please stay quiet. If you're in the house, please stay quiet. We reserve the right of admission, and we can kick you out if you are unruly.
Website is there, and that's all I'm gonna say. So welcome here. It's cool that you guys are organizing this, and I think this is what the idea of Founders Launch is. This is why we said this is cool. You can just use the space. So thanks for organizing this, and I think that the spirit of Founders Launch and why we love it is it's basically from you for you. Yes.
Donald and all the other guys, to Seema and so on, have organized this, but contribute, right? It's supposed to be an active community, and this is what's cool about it. So this is really for you. I think also over time, I think it's a really cool thing to build this here in Uganda. So thanks for initiating it, and let's give them a round of applause for all we discussed a few things. This is an MVE, minimum viable event, as they said. So I think if there's any challenge, we're really a bit nervous about some things and so on. I think it's perfect. We'll be fine. It's really about the conversations and connecting. So let's use that. We found some good ways. I really talked them out of getting tents for outside and not making this a wedding launch event type of scenario. So I'm happy about that. So let's just enjoy it. And maybe in the end, I will say that again, the guys put in some of their own money just to make some small movements. So if you have some 10K in the end that you can contribute just to facilitate the budgets, I think it's an amazing thing that they have brought us all together. And I hope that we can do it in the future, so we don't want to be a burden on their pockets. I will announce it again, and maybe we can collect some to compensate for that. That's it. Thank you. And
Danke schön, Matthias. We have a mix of languages. I wish I could. Mina speaks Arabic, so we can work. Some Arabic, shukran. I think Otin speaks Ateso. Yeah, we speak that. So guys, our panel is about to begin. The first poster that we gave you featured one speaker, and then the event took a life of its own, and Matteo was in town, and we had to have him here because he's a fintech investor, and this is a fintech conversation. And now we have 3 speakers. So this is 3 for the price of 1, even though you have to pay a coin. And now I'm going to introduce the 3 speakers that we have. So the first speaker for this conversation, who most of us came expecting to listen from, is Mr. Mina Shahid. Mina is the co-founder and CEO of Numida Technologies. I don't know if any of you run small businesses and want to borrow money or have borrowed. I know that a few years ago I borrowed money from Numida. I'm not sure I paid back all of it, but yeah. Numida is a fintech startup in Uganda that provides unsecured and digital growth capital to semi-formal businesses. He has spent the past 12 years working to solve systemic problems that keep people poor in sub-Saharan Africa. He holds a bachelor degree in applied science in mechanical engineering. So Bachelor of Applied Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Toronto in Canada. He's Egyptian Canadian, and for some reason he's running a business in Uganda. He's not really all about it. And I'm sure he likes the Ugandan sound better than the Canadian cold. So that's Mina for you. Let's have a round of applause for Mina. Guy with the beard. And yeah, so fun fact, Numida was, I think, the first Ugandan startup to get selected into Y-Combinator, which is a prestigious accelerator program in Silicon Valley. And just last year, they raised $12.3 million for their business. Has anyone raised $1 million here in the audience? But you aspire to? Yeah, so, and that's just the latest round. We raised much more than that. So he can tell us one thing or two about raising big money and growing and scaling a startup. Thank you so much, Mina, for making the time to be with us. And our next speaker, all the way from Portugal, by way of Italy, Mr. Matteo Rizzi. Matteo is an unconventional entrepreneur with 2 decades of experience in financial services, constantly referred among the top executives in the financial technology industry. He spent 13 years at Swift, where he co-founded InnoTribe, the innovation arm of the cooperative, launching the first global startup challenge. Since 2013, he has been a fintech investor and venture partner with multiple global venture capital firms and has done over 20 investment deals with 5 exits. So an exit is where you get your money back from the scale. Most recently at Bamboo Capital Partners. In 2015, he co-founded FinTech Stage, now FTX Group.eu, a platform for investors and innovators to boost FinTech innovation globally. In 2019, Matteo founded TimePledge.org, a global initiative to foster financial inclusion and entrepreneurship. The same year, he launched Breaking Banks Europe, which is a podcast about financial investment and technology. He is the author of The FinTech Revolution and Talent and Rebels, which are 2 books on finance. I don't know if you wrote any copies. And he's fluent in over 5 languages. Matteo holds a university degree in computer science from the University of Genoa and a postgraduate in financial transactions from Soviet Business School. I could go on and on,
That's fine. That's
due to background demand,
That's fine.
that's enough information about Matteo. Let's have a round of applause for Matteo, guys. And this conversation will be moderated by Mr. Gerald Otim. Gerald is the founder and CEO at Bukoto Technologies. Any of you know about Bukoto? Yes, you should. A Ugandan-based fintech startup. Bukoto is an award-winning cloud-based and mobile money integrated microfinance management software platform designed to enable non-bank financial institutions to better serve their customers in Twitter. So we usually call them circles, to digitize circles. He holds a bachelor's degree in development economics from Makerere University. And only last April, Bukoto raised $1 million in I think it was seed funding from FinCharge 8. So all these guys, one of them invests millions of dollars, and 2 of them have had millions invested in them. And I think Bukoto has altogether raised almost $2.5 million. So you guys will have a lot to learn from them. Let's have a round of applause for Gerald and team. And without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Gerald to lead the panel. When they're done talking, they will answer as many questions from you as you'd like to ask. And there's some surprise gifts and goodies for whoever asks the best questions. Gentlemen.
All right.
Would you like to use the mics? The mics for you? Maybe
But it's tough.
No, I think we'll let the whole team tell us what to do. Direct us.
on the table.
So I like my dream.
All right. Thank you, Donald. It's an honor for me to moderate this session. Mina is someone that I've known for a couple of years now, and I have a lot of respect for. We've been planning to have coffee. Maybe this would be an opportunity to finally get to chat.
Yeah.
So just to kind of start off, I know Donald has already said quite a lot about you, Mina, but I think that I really would like to go into the basics. If you would tell us a bit more about yourself. Why Numida? How did you end up with Numida? And why Uganda? How did you find yourself starting Numida, and how did you find yourself here in Uganda?
Yeah, it is very funny. We have been trying to link up forever. I was so surprised when you drove in. So it's great that you're here with the team. The OG of FinTech in Kampala, as I like to say. Yeah, so you know what? This journey has been a very long journey. I think, some people, they just, see the TechCrunch articles and they're like, oh, wow, those guys, they came out of nowhere and they raised this much money. But really, this business has been going on since 2016. It's had many lives and many iterations and many versions of what we do. And really, most of the success has really come in the past couple of years, actually. My personal journey, you know, it was mentioned that I studied engineering. I was probably the worst engineer, the worst mechanical engineer out there. I ended up working as a mechanical engineer for 8 months and realized, you know what, my dream job is not to, you know, design pipes and air conditioners, and I would like to do something more meaningful with my life. And you know, the nice thing about an engineering degree is that it really is just a degree in problem solving. You know, sometimes you have, you know, physical problems. You want to put up this building, and that's the problem. But other problems are much more complex and systemic. Like, how do you help economies develop, and how do you design products for people who have never used technology before, and design products in a way that makes their lives better. So, you know, that's it. Ultimately, how I ended up moving from Canada and kind of back home to Africa, where my family came from. And I spent first actually quite a lot of time in West Africa. I lived in Ghana for 3.5 years, and I started my first company there, which was also a lending business, and it was a disaster. I think we lost very quickly around $200,000, and it was you know, a devastating experience as someone who was 23 years old or 24 years old at that time. I spent 2.5 years working on that business and realized that, you know, there were fundamental problems that would not allow us to succeed, and decided to shut that business down. And that was like the, you know, the big failure that ultimately led to Numida, and Numida being kind of version 2.0 of what we were trying to do in West Africa. And how I ended up here in Uganda, in a previous life, I lived here in 2012, so I had known the country a bit. And after the failure of that first business in Ghana, we kind of went back to the drawing board and started questioning and asking, well, if we wanted to do something like this again, what would we do differently? And now we had 2 years of experience and all of the pain of losing lots of money and, you know, doing something that doesn't work. And we also were much more open-minded about where we would actually start. And so we looked at many countries in Africa, and we looked at in East Africa, specifically Uganda and Kenya, and we decided that we would start the business in Uganda. And so that's how I ended up here. It was, one, I had a very good experience living here in 2012, and I said, you know what, Kampala's a nice place. let me go back there. And two, we just saw that there was so much opportunity and potential in Uganda compared to other markets in East Africa at the time. And we thought that we could do something that would be unique and new and innovative and creative and address real systemic problem in financial inclusion, specifically with the customer segment we serve, which is micro and small businesses. So, you know, that's a bit of a story of kind of like how I got here. And I
business here and has lived here. If we were to talk broadly about the existing opportunities in the Ugandan market, how would you describe the opportunities here for other entrepreneurs that probably want to build businesses here?
I would say that every major sector of the economy is ripe for opportunities. I think that's one of the unique things about Uganda, is that there has been historically so little innovation in very basic services that everything is a problem and everything is an opportunity here. And, you know, for 4 years, I think for 4 years, maybe like 3 or 4 years, Numida had no real competitors. And I don't think you can find other markets like that where you can legitimately operate freely and just take control of the market because you have no competitors. You know, if we were to launch this business in Kenya from day one, we would have had 25 different companies trying to do what we were doing, or competing against us, or us competing against them. So, you know, that's a very unique thing about Uganda. And I think, unfortunately, the reason why that is the situation is because Uganda is not yet on the roadmap of foreign investors in a significant way, unfortunately. And so, yes, there's lots of opportunity. One of the reasons there's lots of opportunity is because it is very hard to start a company. All of you know, it's very hard to raise money. It's very hard to get your first revenue. It's very hard to get the infrastructure that you need to succeed. But I think that's going to change over the coming years. I think a lot of investors are starting to realize that there's more than 4 countries in Africa, and Uganda is a very attractive market for them.
In talking investment, I know you have raised quite some money, but it started from somewhere. What tips would
There's a few things. One was we were very good financial managers ourselves. So whatever little money we had, I'll give you an example. Like the first money we ever got was $58,000 from FSD, which is some, project here in Uganda, financial inclusion project. And the $58,000 lasted us for like 2 years. So we were very, very good at not spending money on things that were not going to progress the business. You have to be, in the early stage, just hyper critical about where every dollar is going and what the consequence of that dollar is, or that shilling. And the other point I'd like to make is fundraising is very easy. Some people are going to tell you fundraising is so hard, but the way to succeed at fundraising is by having results. Traction solves all problems. Stop wasting time trying to raise money in the beginning and spend your time actually producing results, and your life will be significantly better. And to be honest, this was a mistake we made. We spent so much time trying to get $25,000 from this person and $50,000 from this person and apply to this grant. And the first 2.5 years, we were wasting time. If we were focused on just producing results, we would have had significantly more progress on fundraising. And so with this latest round, the reason we're able to raise this latest round is because we had good results. And so we were able to overcome the perception that Uganda is a small market and you shouldn't put money there. Why are you not in Nigeria? Why are you not in South Africa? Why are you not in Kenya? Why are you not in Egypt? All of that's narrative because the results were there. And so, if I were to go back in time, I would have just said our number one priority as a business is to make revenue. And if we make revenue, all of our dreams will come true. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't want to I know fundraising is hard, and I said that a little bit tongue in cheek, that it's easy, but it's actually not that complex. It's not as complicated as we think it is.
You just mentioned that package and communicate these results to you.
I want to pass that off to Matteo as an investor. What have you seen as the best way to package the results and make them interesting?
You agree, moderator, or should I pass it back? No.
Please go ahead.
I can keep drinking, I swear.
Please go ahead.
Well, it is. Thank you for bringing up the fact that at the end of the day, if you traction is probably the criteria number one that will actually ease your way to talk to an investor. But it's also true that traction doesn't mean always, get the money in the bank, right? Because it would maybe is not as immediate to produce the financial results of your dreams and make the company like profitable with little money. But it is true that there are smart ways of showing the curve of adoption, showing the time that you are getting new customers on board, customer retention, monetization or cross-selling services on a given client. So there are ways indeed to show different type of metrics, all building up on how your product is attractive, then actually can speak quite well to an investor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matteo. And just keep.
Indeed, I'm an investor, but I'm also an entrepreneur, not a startup entrepreneur that raises VC capital like you guys, but I built a prop tech company with 25 properties and 5 people working full time. And I built up a food and beverage business with a franchise of Brazilian churrascos in Lisbon. These are all businesses that I've invested in because they have a passion for entrepreneurship and has nothing to do with fintech. But my investor journey is all about fintech. Like this?
Yeah.
Okay. So my investor's journey is mainly about fintech, insurtech, and financial services. And we were actually joking with Mina about what we missed. Very, very often the type of deals that you miss as an investor, gives certain data about since how long you're in the game and this type of information. And I missed on both Revolut and TransferWise, both. And I had the possibility to make an offer when they were actually raising the first round of capital. And since then, the first lesson I learned is that you cannot always win as an investor, right? That you have to accept the fact that the timing is everything, and there will be moments where an amazing startup will just go, and there will also be moments where you actually put money in a startup that does not sort of convince you 300%, but the team does, and then it becomes something that is unexpected because it pivoted. That's the first lesson. The second lesson is that the earlier you invest, the more you need to trust the team, because the chances that the startup stays the same 3 years down the road, if you put the money very early, are very little. And the best way for you to preserve your capital is make sure that the entrepreneur and the team, actually the founder's team, has the skill to smart pivot, fast fail, recognize the error, wisely administer finances. Because let's say, it's a journey for everyone, not only for the investors, but for you guys where we are building the business. That's the second lesson. And the third lesson is, and I've been saying this to until I put everyone to sleep 4 hours ago. We had a 4-hour session that should have lasted 2 hours with a bunch of entrepreneurs at I-Collab. And the more homework you do as an entrepreneur when you raise funds, the less work the investor has to make to take a decision on your company. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of the investor you're like asking money from, because they are not all the same. They don't have the same portfolio. They don't have the same thesis, and almost have a super personalized approach that demonstrates that you have been actually researching which type of deal they do. Is your company complementary, competing, or doubling down in another company that's in their portfolio? This is almost like homework 2.0 that unfortunately entrepreneurs don't do enough.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment on that. Like, it's most likely that you're going to raise money from an investor who has invested in a similar type of business to you than from an investor who has never invested in anything related to your company. So that's a really good one.
Okay, back to Matteo. If you had to narrow down to 3 things, if we talk red flags, the potential investments that you've passed on, those that you've said no to, what were those things about the business or the entrepreneur that compelled you to say no? If you just now
three factors is one, the entrepreneur was believing too much in her own bullshit. So you guys have to be, optimistic and believe in the business, but also, have to demonstrate that you've been reasonable and thought through and knowing your business and the market. So that's one. So when the degree of believing too much in their own bullshit was too overboard, that's likely to be first. Second, but that's like a personal. So I personally have a pizza test with. So if the entrepreneur doesn't pass the pizza test, is likely to be a no. What's a pizza test? But it's a personal philosophy, have to get along with the entrepreneur, because we're going to spend the next 10 years together. And if I call the pizza test, meaning that if I don't like to hang out with Mina and have a pizza together, it means that every time I see him, maybe I'll go because I put my money in, but it's not going to be like seeing a friend. This also may backfire the moment that I have some tough love to give him, okay? But it's also an insurance that we're going to make a cohesive team. So no pizza test, no investment. And maybe the third, unbalanced founder teams. So there are teams who are amazing, but they missed tech skills, or in fintech especially, right? So or they wanna go and build a service against the bank, and none of them has any idea of how a bank works, So and they're not even open to learn, but that's also a deeper, a deeper theme, a deeper conclusion. But in general, there is almost this imperceptible mix of skills that make the magic in a team, and it's a combination of soft but also very hard. There is no one with analytical skills. how on earth they are going to control the money that I'm giving to these guys. So unbalanced team is a third one.
I think that's great. You have
With the challenges, and I'm going to tell a story to explain like how challenging this was. When we first started Numida, we had a mobile app in 2016. We were targeting micro and small businesses in CBD. These are people selling motorcycle spare parts, hardware supplies, clothing, cosmetics, and very few people actually had a smartphone. And the people who had a smartphone had no idea how the phone worked. They just had the phone. Some guy sold them the phone. He created for them a Gmail account because it's Android and they need a Gmail account, and the Gmail account was in that other salesperson's name. And he downloaded for them Facebook and WhatsApp, and that was what they had. And we were coming to them and we were saying, we have this app that does these things. You need to go to Google Play and download it and register and so on and so forth. Nobody had any idea how to do this thing. So for the first year, we were literally teaching people what a smartphone was, what Android was, what the Google Play Store was. And this was the time when there were social bundles by MTN and Airtel that allowed you to get very cheap social media, Facebook and Instagram and these things. And what we learned at that time was that people didn't know the difference between Facebook and the internet. They didn't know that there was this world outside of Facebook, but the only way you can access that world is if you go buy data, you go buy MBs. That is not a social bundle. So when we started, we were really at the beginning of serving this customer segment. We were the first mobile app on their phones that was not a social media app or a game. And that required a significant amount of education and convincing. And that's one of the reasons why it took us so long to get people onto this product. And it was only by nothing that we did. It was just by time that people started to learn about Android. They started to understand that there's these things called apps and there's other things other than Facebook. And to get these things, I have to buy data, I have to buy MBs. And it wasn't because of us, it was because of the world that essentially started to unlock this potential. So that was, one of the things I remember like very distinctly. We used to ask people to register with an email address, right? And you had to create a password. Of course, nobody knew what an email address was or a password. So we spent half the time, changing people's passwords, trying to find their accounts. We realized, oh, this person has an email address from the person who sold them the phone, and so very quickly we realized, okay, we can't rely on emails. We have to use phone numbers. Everybody knows what their phone number is, and we can send them a code to their phone number, and they can register on the app this way. So, that tech adoption, actually, like all of you people, I don't know, your like average age is 23 years old. You know what a smartphone is, an Android phone is, and all that stuff, and you grew up with this technology, and you know it from day one, and you're very tech savvy. Our customer segment was not like that at the beginning. And now, obviously, things are very different. The time we get a customer inquiry saying, I don't have a smartphone, how can I use your product? You know, very, very rare. Now people, they download the app, no problem. They can register, they can put in their information. They know how to navigate the technology. But that was a significant learning. And when I would tell investors from North America, like, how do you design a mobile app for someone who has never used a computer? Their brain was like in shock. They're like, what do you mean? People don't have computers. People didn't grow up with laptops in their house. And I'm like, yes, that's the reality of building, you know, technology products in these markets. And so there's a lot of education to do on that side. So that was a major challenge and a learning. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out how do we build the world's most simplest app for somebody who has never used a computer before and they just got a smartphone yesterday. And that was our design philosophy, was simplicity, and it still is our design philosophy. And if you look at the original Numida app, like, a lot of people hated on our app, other technology people, because it was so ugly. It was so basic. The UI was so basic, but that was by design. We realized that none of these early users cared if the app had nice colors and cool fonts and all of that stuff you see now. They just needed something that they could navigate directly and figure out how to use. So that was, you know, that was a major learning. And then there's been an insane amount of challenges since then. But.
Back to Matteo. Was this your first time here in Kampala, or you've been here before? First?
I've been a few times. I've been here a few times.
Okay. When you look at the industry currently, you've probably met a couple of different entrepreneurs, you've talked to them. Where do you see opportunity to invest? As an investor, where do you see opportunity to invest? In what kind of sectors, what kind of businesses, what kind of entrepreneurs, from the knowledge you have of the Ugandan industry at the moment?
So I agree that, and remember, I have a very strong fintech bias, right? When I talk about the type of investment that I look at, and I think that fintech became so pervasive now in the society that I see opportunities in like the African version of embedded finance, okay, which is you know, and let me give you an example of a startup that is not in this market but is in Francophone Africa. It's called Gozen, and they started like the classical ride hailing, you know, like the Uber, but very quickly they realized two things. One, that if they wanted to differentiate from the competition, they had to put the driver in the center. So they add a safe boat, a component to the Gozen. But then immediately they say, wait a second, you know, let's build immediately an app that also allow them to finance their vehicles, their motorbikes, and also like digitize their payslip, and after a while also be able to get a loan for these payslips. So they actually didn't launch one service; they launched 5. This is the type of opportunities that I see in these markets for 2 reasons. One, because as Mina rightly said, there is still a lot of opportunity here in combining different financial services innovations with an S, with plural, okay, in a single app, learning by what has happened in other markets. And second, because that ensures that even if you stay here, you can reach out a critical mass which is big enough that proves the model solid, right? And then it's up to you if you want to raise the 20, 30, 40 and get out. But just with the local market, you can have like a solid shoulders to prove your model.
Interesting. And if you were to provide guidance to local startups from the knowledge that you have so far, where do you feel are there things you feel we're getting wrong here in this market? Also, given your knowledge of the other markets you've probably been to, are there things Ugandan entrepreneurs are getting wrong, things we could do better that would increase the opportunity for investment here in the industry?
So I think that usually the weak point of the system is the regulator, okay, in the fintech space. And here there is a relatively good, like a fintech association that can make these links, to the guys that can actually ensure a true opportunity to scale for the startup. I couldn't tell what you guys are probably have more, because you cannot compare. If I cannot compare Uganda with a similar country, because there is no similar country than Uganda in Africa, because dimensions cannot be the right. The enablement, the regulatory enablement cannot be the right way to compare. Penetration of financial services cannot be that, because it's a combination, right? So I think that what I observe in the past 2 to 5 years is a clear progression in terms of fintech services that are the one that I know best, of course. And even if the fact that 5 years ago there were no competitors in a business that was so historically proven, like Numida, it is right now there are a few lenders, in the country, not in the same model, but it becomes a bit more pervasive. So I see the right pattern. I'm not sure I'm the right one to say what is failing here. Maybe you have a better idea.
I would open it up actually to the people here. Yeah.
We'll come to that. But before we do that, one other question that I had for you, you joined the Y-Combinator. I think I would love to hear your experience with that. How did you get there? What was your experience overall joining the Y-Combinator Accelerator?
So here, just like show of hands, like who knows what Y-Combinator is? Okay. So Y-Combinator is this technology accelerator in the United States. It's very, I guess, like prestigious is the word, or competitive to get in. They give you a bunch of money. They give their stamp of approval on your business. And one of the reasons why it's heavily respected is they've invested in a lot of businesses that have become very, very large, multiple billion-dollar tech startups. As two that are like, very, very big and known would be Airbnb and Stripe. But they have thousands now actually of companies that they've invested in. So Uganda has never had a technology company successfully apply to this thing and get in. And Numida was the first to do this. And I want to say that we applied many times. So, it wasn't because the business was amazing 5 years ago and they just, didn't choose to invest in us. It really required quite a bit of, trial and error. And Y-Combinator is, I would say, if you are a company that has not raised any money or a very small amount of money, and you are very early in your beginning days, and maybe you have a product out in the market, but you have a few customers and the product only works 50% of the time, Y-Combinator is an incredible opportunity. I would encourage every single technology entrepreneur to apply to Y-Combinator. Hands down, I would say you should definitely do that. We were a bit unique in that we had been around for years and we had raised money before. And the reason we went to Y-Combinator is because we knew that if we want to build a Pan-African, multi-country, very large business, we had to raise money in the US. And we needed the stamp of approval from Y-Combinator that said, this is a Uganda-based company, but they're legit and they have potential and they're going to be a big company. And one day, you know, they're going to be a unicorn and so on and so forth. And so that was, you know, ultimately why we decided to go to YC. And I would say we did get what we wanted out of the experience. We were able to raise capital. We brought on board some really interesting investors. First time they've ever invested in Uganda, and I'm very proud of that. I think, yeah, every investor except for one that we raised money from, it was their first time to invest in a company that operated in Uganda. And so now Uganda's on their radar. You're like, oh, Uganda's not this no-name small country that nobody knows about, the country beside Kenya. That's what, you know, these guys in the US think. They're, oh, is that the country beside Kenya? And now, hopefully, you know, they'll say like, oh yeah, Uganda, you know what, Numida, they were Y-Combinator, Uganda, yeah, Uganda's a big opportunity. Let me go look at the companies in Uganda. So, you know, that was something that we're very, very proud of. We're not so proud of like the YC whatever, but we're proud of the fact that now, hopefully, more investors will come to the Uganda ecosystem and start writing checks, and you start seeing people raise significant amounts of money.
Okay, thank you so much, Mina and Matteo. I wish we had more time. These are very interesting conversations. Unfortunately, we don't, but we will have a few questions from the audience.
Next time.
Next time.
Questions
Okay.
for the audience. Or,
I'm happy to say it, but
Yeah. So Matteo has to go, but
sorry guys.
let's thank him for
Thank you
his
very
time.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
thank you so much.
I
So-
made the cocktail.
So we have some Numida t-shirts for a lucky man and a lucky woman, whoever asks the first question, and it's a good one.
Okay. Yes.
Hi everyone. First of all, thank you so much. You gave us business last year as Tubayo for your team building. Numida. But my question, I'm the chief of operations at Tubayo, and I find it hard to balance between getting to where we want to be and using the small funds that we have. So you talked about being lean, being careful with how we spend. So how do you balance that? Because we want the results that are going to put us on Africa scale.
Sorry, what's your name?
Boris.
Boris. So it's incredible actually what you can accomplish with a small amount of money if you are hyper-focused. One KPI. And anything outside of that KPI, you just kill it. You say, we'll work on that when we go raise $1 million. I think, and it's interesting, I was sitting in some breakfast thing yesterday morning, and what I realized was a commonality of many of the entrepreneurs who introduced themselves about what they did. They said they did 10 things. And I was sitting there and I'm like, that's why you're struggling to raise money, because you will never have enough results in all of those 10 things. So I would say, think about what is the highest leverage thing we can do and just focus on that and become an expert at that and get the traction in that one thing. It's a much better story when you go to an investor and you say, hey, look at what I just did. Look at this growth. Every month, 20% month-on-month growth. I did it with this very small amount of money. This is just one part of our long-term vision. Look at what we accomplished, instead of going to an investor and saying, hey, guess what? We have 7 different products we're building simultaneously. Each one of them has 3 customers, but one day we'll have many customers. It's a much better story to say, I have one product, I have one KPI, I've grown that KPI like this every single month. So, and this is honestly from past learning. We failed at this. The first 2 years of our existence, we had 2 products we were trying to build simultaneously. They both sucked. So nobody wanted to give us money because they were like, why are you so small? You haven't accomplished anything. Go do something and then come back and talk to us.
Thank you very much. I'm called Sabrina Atwine, founder Nimaronje. And you mentioned something really interesting about not focusing on fundraising at the early stages of your startup, but rather producing results. And which I think is interesting because my startup for almost like 1.5 years, we were in accelerator programs, actually even winning them, but not getting the money. We're really just doing fundraising. But now it reached a point and you find you don't have like the results. So now my challenge is, when you are producing results, you definitely need the funds. And yet here you're actually saying, don't focus on raising the funds, fundraising. So I would like to know like some of the tips you can give that someone could follow other than fundraising, and how possible that can work out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear. I don't mean don't raise any money. So obviously you can't build anything if you have $0 in your bank account. But you don't need as much money as you think to produce the results necessary to get significantly more money faster. And so, I'll give you an example. There are companies in our Y-Combinator batch who had gone from 0 to 500 customers in a 3 or 6 month period. It probably cost them like $20,000 to do that. And in that period of time, they were able to go and convince investors to give them $1 million or $2 million. Simply because they had focus and they showed that every month they were growing. And so I think like we all need some startup capital, whether it's $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. But you would be surprised at what you can accomplish with such small money if you're very, very focused on a single thing that you will use to prove to people that this thing has like potential. You need some proof. And so it's a very hard skill at the beginning, because at the beginning, you're just doing whatever and hoping that something works. And the way to not waste money and resources is to quickly be able to determine when something is not working. And for that to happen, you have to be very data-driven. You can spend 9 months trying to convince yourself, oh, but if I just change that feature, if I make the color of this button yellow instead of green, more people will do the action I want them to do. And so you have to be very, very good at the beginning of talking to your customers, understanding. It's very cheap to talk to customers, by the way. What does it cost you? It costs you a Bukoto ride. You spend $5K a day, you go talk to 3 customers, they tell you why your product sucks. That's amazing feedback and a very efficient use of capital. And so, that being close to the customer, really focused, really being critical about what you're going to spend money on, and knowing with a high degree of confidence that if we're spending money on this thing, I'm almost 99% sure that it's going to produce results. that's the way you need to be thinking when you have such little resources in your account. O-Team though, I want to hear O-Team's opinion because O-Team is, I told you, he's the OG of fintech, so he has wisdom to share.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really, I don't differ from what Mina just said. I think maybe to throw a bit more weight, I think as an entrepreneur, the temptation to do so much is always there. You know, you run into new ideas every day, right? And you want to speed up something, a new feature, a new experience on the app. The temptation is always there. But I think what's important is the discipline to stay focused on the important things. And I think you have to establish from the very start what that important thing is for your business, right? If someone else is going to be interested in your business, what are they going to be looking at? And once you know what that is, then that has to be your top priority from the very start.
They want you in the spot.
Oh, okay, this. So you mean I wasn't on the video then? That's disappointing. I thought I was on the video. Yeah, so it's really, you can't focus on the most important things if you don't know what the important things are. So it starts by you establishing what's important for your business. You know, what are the key metrics for your business? And making sure that your resources, your time, and your effort, because when you're a young business, unfortunately, you don't have a lot of that. You don't have a lot of resources, you don't have so much time, and you want to make sure that you're investing your time and resources in the things that are important for your business. And every day people will come to you, even your own customers will come to you with new ideas. They say, can you do this? Can you do that for us? I'm sure Mina has got so many of those from his customers. And you just have to be disciplined and pass on things that are not important for the business. I think that's what I would say.
My name is Geoffrey. Really good presentation. My question is around firstly from Mina. You got into YC as a signaling move and not really for the 100K or 500K that YC is going to give you, right? How much of fundraising is signaling? I mean, from having raised what, like 12 million and probably more than that cumulatively. How much of fundraising is actual signaling? How much of it is results? Like, what is fundraising actually? Does it take, and I know there's like a bunch of people here saying, Mina is a Mzungu, he can talk to his fellow Bazungu and they give him money. But like, is it really, you know, being Harvard educated, you know, having a white founder on the table, having good results, or being in YC, right? Yeah. But on top of that, after raising, and I've had this discussion with a number of other founders who have raised, after raising, I know Davis was telling me recently, like the problems, all your money problems first get solved in the first like 1 month, then real problems come up. What are the problems, or what happens after raising? And you know, what does that look like? Because I think at times we as founders look at raising as like an end, like after raising, then I can go to the beach, right? But like, what happens after you close that check? Yeah, that's my question.
Very good questions, Geoffrey. So the first question, and I want to acknowledge the privilege that having a foreign identification will grant you if you are raising money outside of Africa. This is a fact. So I don't want to say like, oh no, it's just because Numida is a great company. No, it's a fact, and it's unfortunate, and it's the truth, and I want to acknowledge that's the reality. The reason that's the reality is because we still on the continent do not have very many African tech entrepreneurs who have succeeded, who are investing in their own people. And so you have most of the money is coming from the West, it's coming from Europe, and it's coming from North America, and it's coming from people who are not from Africa, and it's going to people who are not from Africa. That's a fact, it's a reality, and that's going to change when we in this room actually succeed and we make lots of money and we start writing checks. And so don't expect that someone's just going to give you money just because it's a good thing for them to do and it's diversity and whatever. You have to accept the reality that you are in, that you are dealing with, and then search for the money who has African partners behind it. So I'm going to tell you a story. Numida in 2021 had 2 months of money in the bank. December 2020, actually. And so we were getting prepared. We said, you know what, we have no idea what's going to happen. And you know who gave us money? Was a guy from Benin. And the reason why is because he understood immediately what we were doing and the potential and the scale, because he was from a place that had the exact same problems. So we spent all this time talking to foreigners, trying to give us cash. They all said no. And then this guy from Benin, who is the CEO and founder of MFS Africa, which is a big Pan-African payments company. They're going to be a unicorn very soon, and so on. He understood right away, and he ended up giving us money and investing in the business, and that's what allowed us to continue our progress. So the thing I would say here is, like, for you, Joffrey, for example, when you're raising, find where is the money that has African partners behind it, and focus on those partners. Focus on those funds. In terms of YC signaling, I would say that you asked you posed the question very interesting, which you said, how much of the fundraising is signaling versus results? I would say if you are building a company in Africa, almost 100% results. Unfortunately, the burden of proof here is 10 times the burden of proof in San Francisco. Like I told you, you have YC companies who have 500 customers and a couple of $1,000s in the bank raising millions of dollars, right? But if you're coming from here, the amount of proof you have to have is just significantly higher. And again, it's because the money is coming from outside. So I would say for us here, working here, people who don't have white skin, who don't have fancy degrees and all of that stuff, and the networks, you just have to produce results. And then as you grow, I will say this, fundraising does get easier. It's very easy it's much easier to like raise money when you have used money and you produced results with someone else's money than it is to raise money when you have no results, right? If I can go and show you a track record of somebody gave me $1 million and this is what I accomplished with it, that's good, right? It tells the investor like, hey, these people know how to use the money. The second question, remind me the second question again?
What happens after raising?
Oh yeah, then it's a disaster. So then, you know, Biggie, Notorious B.I.G., he was very wise. He said, more money, more problems, right? And that's the truth. More money, more problems. You think that all of your problems are solved when you look at the bank account and you see all these zeros you never saw before? Now the real stress begins, which is the stress of how do I use this money efficiently to produce the results I need to produce and get this company to the next stage and return something to the investors. And that's an extreme, I can tell you that pressure is almost, it's not exactly, but it's almost as high as the pressure of running out of money. It's obviously a better position to have money in the bank account than having no money in the bank account, but the pressure is very, very high. Well, you should definitely go to the beach after you raise $1 million. That one is allowed. 1 week in Zanzibar, Uganda Airlines direct to that one. You can do that. Anything to add?
Yeah, I think the things that contribute to the pressure are stakeholders. Because when you raise money, then you have new stakeholders, right? The people that write you big checks expect more from you than the people that write you small checks, right? So the stakes are higher, right? So if you have been growing 2x, they'll expect you to be growing 7 or 10x. And then there are other stakeholders. Government is one of them. The Ugandan government is quite unpopular for going online looking for businesses that have raised money and sending them big tax bills. So that will happen, right? And then you have employees that think because you have raised money, now they can take home more, right? So they will start asking for higher salaries. So all these things will happen when you raise money. There will be a lot of stakeholder pressure. So when you raise money, you have to expect that that will happen. You will have more sleepless nights than you did when you had little money. Sometimes you wish you would go back 3 years back when you had little money and you had little problems. So that will happen.
I think this can be the last question. Oh, now everybody puts their hand up. Okay, 2 more questions. 2 more questions.
I have the mic, so I think I'll go first. My hand was up first. So yeah, I've been speaking about people, team, and how that is essential to raise money. But then also I wanted to hear a journey on how you are able to put together a good team, a team that you know that will work with you to achieve what you're building. But then also at the start, few of us usually have cash to like hire like a good operations person. How did you put all those puzzles together to get a team to work with you on this dream?
Very, very, very good. What's your name? Your name?
Andrew.
Andrew, very good question, Andrew. So till this day, now Numida's existed for 6 years. The most important thing I ever did and the best thing I ever did was find my 2 co-founders. Hands down. Most important decision, most important work I've done in the past 6 years. So team is everything, especially in the early days when you don't have lots of money and everybody's working for free. That's the reality. Like if you think that you're gonna start a company and get a salary from day one, go do something else. Go be a boda driver or something, because that's not gonna happen. You're not getting that daily income and it's not gonna come for a while. It took us, I think, maybe like 1.5 years, 2 years before we were able to actually pay people. And, you know, in the meantime, we were just like scraping, getting some grants, trying to do whatever we could to just like eat and live and work. So, you know, getting the co-founders right at the beginning is critical. Making sure people are in it for the right motivation. You know, building a startup, it's like so sexy now. It's like everybody wants to be running a startup. And, you know, that's not necessarily like the right motivation to you know, to do this, because the sacrifices are very real, very, very real sacrifices. In terms of hiring your first staff and the team as well, I would say the most important thing at the beginning is like people who are passionate about the mission, vision, and the values of the business. And so for all of you, if you haven't yet written down a mission, a vision, and some core values for your business, I would highly recommend you to do that, because without those things, you're just gonna get random people that you don't even know to come and help you, and you never know what their motivations are, and who knows the conflict that's gonna bring within the team. So I would start from there and use that as a framework for really bringing on board the right people. Okay, last question. Okay, you've got the mic. Sandra's got the mic.
So my name is Sandra. My question would be around building the infrastructure to help you succeed. Someone once said that as first generation startup entrepreneurs, we are tasked with the heavy duty of building the infrastructure we need for our ideas and our innovations to work in Uganda. My question would be, at what cost have you built this infrastructure, and how much time has that taken away from the main thing, which is Numida or Bukoto, and how do you measure success in being able to build this infrastructure in a way that your business and other businesses that come after you can use them to be able to enjoy or succeed as much as you have?
Well, so we started building infrastructure. I would say when we started doing it, we didn't know we were building infrastructure. We just knew we were building a product that the market needed. And we didn't think of it as building infrastructure. We thought of it more as product. And actually, the customer paid for it. And I think it was unintentional, honestly speaking. We had the software as a service business providing infrastructure to circles and savings groups, and we got them to pay for it then. So when we went to them, it was really just selling a product. And then several years later, it occurred to us that what we were really doing was really infrastructure, and that we needed to start layering services on top of it for it to be meaningful to our customers. Then we started plugging in other services like microinsurance and loans and payment services. And that's really now the thing that has become interesting for the business and also interesting for our customers. So I would say for us, it wasn't rough building infrastructure because the customer paid for it. And I think it will differ from business to business, but I think for me, having the customer pay for the infrastructure itself made it easy. We don't offer anything for free to any of our customers. So for example, savings groups that we work with, unlike circles are more modern and they're bigger in size. Savings groups are really small groups of women, 25 women that keep money in a lockbox. And to get them away from the lockbox, you have to provide them a smartphone with an app that has a mobile wallet and so many other things. And it needs to run on the internet. And we've had to do a lot of things with telecom companies to zero rate the app so that they don't have to pay for bundles every now and then. And for savings groups, it's been difficult because, of the nature of customers they're not accustomed to paying for these sorts of things. So we found someone else that was interested enough to pay for it. So for those of you that know, it's really community-based organizations and NGOs that create savings groups. So what we sell to the NGO is data. So we go to them and say, divert part of your M&E budget. We will help you organize data for savings groups so you have better access to that data in a dashboard, and you can use that data for your monitoring purpose. And it costs this much for every savings group. For every savings group we bring on board. And what we're really doing is getting someone else to pay for the infrastructure that the savings groups need. Once the savings groups are on our platform, then they can pay for insurance, they can access loans, they can do a lot of other things from the platform itself. So that's what we did at Bukoto.
Just very quickly, we actually have relied on other people's infrastructure. So, you know, we use a payments platform that's very helpful for us. We use all the cloud services, everything, and so we haven't really had to build too much infrastructure ourselves. Of course, we've built our own tools and the app and all of that stuff, but we've really relied on other rails to deliver the product and make it efficient. Thank you guys so much. It's been great. I'm sorry I have to run, but I'm going to give you my email address if you need anything. If you want to get some feedback on your Y-Combinator application, mina@numidatech.com, numidatech.com. Feel free to shoot me an email and we can stay connected.
Let's thank Mina
for his valuable time. Thank you, Mina. And thanks to the organizers. It's been a pleasure for me to moderate this session. And I look forward to the next one.
Thank you, O team.
Guys, can we have a bigger round of applause? Team, you didn't share your email, and someone might want to.
My email is
Sako and what alone.
It's team@nsibuko.com.
Thank you. Let's have it one more time. Mina, your email once again. We have some goodies.
mina@numidatech.com. Oh yeah, we have some. I think they're for these two people right in front of you, Samora. Yeah, they were the first to ask questions, so you get some.
Congratulations, Boris and Sabrina. You get some gifts, guys. We hope you have enjoyed this. If you have more questions, you can.